Imagine charging up a muddy hillside in the French mountains, October 1944. German machine gun fire is shredding the trees around you. Mortars are landing so close, you can feel the concussion in your chest. You're fighting for the United States of America. You're willing to die under the star-spangled banner. But back home, at this very moment, your mother is standing in line for dinner at the Manzanar internment camp. Your father is behind barbed wire in the California desert, guarded by American soldiers. Your family's crime, being Japanese. This was the reality for the men of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. They called themselves Go for Broke, a gambling term that means risking everything on one roll of the dice. And that's exactly what they did. They had to fight two wars simultaneously, one against Hitler's army in Europe, and one against prejudice at home. Today, we're examining one of the most decorated units in American military history and asking a brutal question. What does it cost to prove your loyalty when your own country doesn't trust you? December 1941. Pearl Harbor is burning, and in the aftermath, America doesn't just declare war on Japan. It declares suspicion on every person of Japanese ancestry living on American soil. Within months, President Roosevelt signs Executive Order 9066. 120,000 people of Japanese descent, 2/3 of them American citizens, are forced from their homes and sent to internment camps in remote desert locations. Barbed wire, guard towers, no charges, no trials. And here's the cruel irony. Young Japanese, American men who tried to enlist after Pearl Harbor were turned away. They were classified as 4C, enemy aliens, unfit for service. The message was clear: America didn't trust them with guns, even guns pointed at America's enemies. But war has a way of changing calculations. By 1943, the military needs manpower, and American leaders see an opportunity. They argue, let our sons serve. Let them prove their loyalty in blood. The result is the formation of two units. First, the 100th Infantry Battalion, composed mostly of Japanese Americans from Hawaii. Then, the larger 442nd Regimental Combat Team, drawing from both Hawaii and the mainland internment camps. The officers are mostly white. The enlisted men are Nasi, second-generation Japanese Americans, born on U.S. soil holding U.S. citizenship. They adopt a motto from Hawaiian gambling culture: go for broke. Risk everything, because that's exactly what they understood they were doing. This wasn't just about taking territory or winning battles. This was about purchasing the future, civil rights of their entire community with their own blood. One soldier later wrote, "We weren't just fighting Germans. We were fighting for the right to be called American." They shipped out to Europe in 1944, and they were about to enter some of the most vicious combat of the entire war. Point once in, the Purple Heart Battalion, the 100th Battalion, arrives in Italy in September 1943, attached to the 34th Infantry Division, and immediately, they're thrown into the meat grinder. The Italian campaign is brutal. We're talking about fighting in mountains, in mud, against entrenched German positions, the Battle of Monte Cassino, the Gothic Line, the battles where progress is measured in yards, and the cost is measured in bodies. The 100th Battalion earns a nickname: the Purple Heart Battalion. That's not a compliment you want. It means you're bleeding a lot. But here's what commanders notice: the Nazi troops don't break, they don't retreat. Their tactical doctrine is unusually aggressive. High mobility, constant pressure, willingness to take casualties that would make other units pull back. Why? Because politically, they can't afford to fail. Retreat isn't just a tactical option. It's a confirmation of every racist stereotype. Every time they fall back, someone back home says, "See, they're not loyal. They're not brave enough." So they don't fall back. They adapt the aggressive spirit of their culture, what some called banzai, courage, to modern infantry tactics, and they pay for every inch of Italian soil with their own blood. By the time they move north to France, they've already proven themselves in combat. But the real test, the mission that will define them forever, is waiting in the Vosges Mountains. The Lost Battalion, October 1944. Eastern France, near the German border. The Vosges Mountains. The American advance has been rapid, maybe too rapid. A battalion from the Texas 36th Division, the 1st Battalion, 141st Infantry Regiment, pushes too far forward and gets cut off. Surrounded by German forces, 211 men trapped in the forest, running low on ammunition, running out of food, taking casualties every day. They're called the Lost Battalion, and the army desperately wants them back. 2 rescue attempts fail. The Germans are dug in. The terrain is nightmarish. Dense forest, steep hills, cold rain turning everything to mud. Units that try to break through get chewed up and forced back. Then General John Dahlquist turns to the 442nd. He gives them the mission break through the German lines and rescue the Texans. The soldiers of the 42nd understand what this means. One veteran later remembered, "We knew we were expendable. We knew they were using us as a battering ram." The attack begins on October 26th. What follows is 6 days of the most savage close quarters combat imaginable. Fighting tree to tree, German machine gun nests, mortars, artillery, counterattacks. The 42nd doesn't stop. When one company is decimated, another takes its place. When officers fall, sergeants lead. When sergeants fall, privates lead. They break through on October 30th. They reach the Lost Battalion. 211 Texans are saved. The cost, over 800 casualties in the 442nd. Let that sink in. They lost almost 4 men for every one they saved. Companies that went in with 180 men came out with fewer than 20. One of the rescued Texans later said, "We didn't know who they were at first. Then we saw their faces, Japanese guys, giving us their rations, giving us water. Some of them were crying." Point 30. The price of proof after the rescue. General Dahlquist orders a formation. He wants to review the regiment, to thank them personally for their heroism. The surviving men of the 442nd line up, and Dahlquist looks at the thin ranks. Just a few hundred men standing, where there should be thousands. He turns to an officer and asks, "Where are the rest of your men?" The officer responds, "Sir, this is all that's left." Dahlquist is shocked. He hadn't understood. He'd spent them like coins, assuming there would always be more. He hadn't grasped that he was burning through an entire generation of young Japanese, American men. This moment, this terrible, quiet moment, encapsulates the entire tragedy of the 442nd. Yes, they won. Yes, they proved their courage beyond any possible doubt, but the cost was unspeakable. They had to die at higher rates than other units just to earn the same respect. They had to be more brave, more aggressive, more willing to sacrifice, because anything less would be used as evidence against their entire race. One veteran said it plainly years later. "We had to be better. We had to bleed more. Because if we failed every Japanese, American would pay the price." By the end of the war, the numbers tell a story. The 42nd Regimental Combat Team becomes the most decorated unit in U.S. military history for its size and length of service. 21 medals of honor, though many weren't awarded until decades later, after the racism of the era faded enough to recognize what they'd done. Nearly 10,000 Purple Hearts, unit citations, battle honors. But here's what the numbers don't tell you. The 442nd had a casualty rate of 314%. That means the unit had to be replaced 3 times over. Think about that. Every original member was either killed, wounded, or replaced with someone who was then also killed or wounded. Military historians study the 442nd because they proved something crucial. Shared adversity creates elite unit cohesion. When everyone in your unit has family in internment camps, when everyone is fighting against the same prejudice, the bonds are unbreakable. It's the same dynamic that makes special forces effective. Total trust, shared purpose, willingness to die for each other. In July 1946, President Truman greets the 442nd on the White House lawn. He tells them, "You fought not only the enemy, but you fought prejudice, and you have won." It's a beautiful sentiment, but it's only half true, because when these men came home, many returned to the same, "No Japs allowed" signs they'd left behind. Their families were released from camps to find their homes stolen, their businesses destroyed, their savings gone. The military victory didn't immediately translate into social victory. It would take decades, generations, before America fully reckoned with what it had done and what these men had sacrificed to overcome it. The soldier on that muddy hillside in France, the one we imagined at the beginning, he's real. His name might be Sadao Munimori, who threw himself on a grenade to save his squad mates and earned the Medal of Honor. Or Daniel Inouye, who lost his arm charging a German machine gun nest and later became a U.S. senator. Or it might be one of the hundreds whose names we don't remember, who died proving something they should never have had to prove. The 42nd didn't just win battles. They forced America to look in the mirror. They paid for their citizenship in blood, and they showed us that patriotism isn't about what your country gives you. Sometimes it's about what you're willing to give your country, even when it doesn't deserve it. Did you know about the sacrifice of the 42nd, about the 4-to-1 casualty ratio in the Vosges Mountains? Drop a comment and let us know what you think. If you want more forgotten histories like this, subscribe and hit the bell. Next time, we're looking at another impossible choice in war, the Navajo Code Talkers, and the secret they couldn't tell their own families, the go for broke. Ian.